So, good afternoon, and welcome to our Friday edition of Military Trailblazer Office Hours. This is our Friday open Q&A session, where our goal is to give a live forum for transitioning military, veterans, spouses, and allies. So basically anybody that is on a Salesforce learning journey, this is a place where you can come and ask questions, a couple extra sets of eyes on an issue or challenge that you're having to work. And pretty much any Salesforce technology related topic is fair game. The only thing that we ask that we don't cover specifically is direct help with Salesforce super badges, as that violates Salesforce's policy. But other than that, anything is fair game. Anything from a very basic, simple question all the way through to the most advanced. And if we have somebody on the call that can help you out, we will do our best to do so. After the call, if you want to stay connected to the community, you can always sign up for email reminders for all the Military Trailblazer office hour sessions on mtofficehours.com. You can also follow us on our page and group on LinkedIn, and you can also join our Slack workspace, as I alluded to a moment ago. So that being said, let's jump in. If anybody has a question or a topic that they would like to go through, all I ask is that you raise your hand using the gestures at the bottom there. And yeah, let's go. Anybody have any questions or topics that they would like to cover for today? I feel like holiday weekends, nobody has topics. You're like, yeah, it's just get through it.
I did
So-
one of those.
Good, Sandy.
Sorry. So I just did one of those community trailblazer ones, your region kind of thing. And they actually had a pretty interesting scenario of different things that they tried. And they use regularly, like how you can add emojis into text fields now and make it a little bit more visual. And it's easier than doing it the old way where you have to download the image and put the image in your field to create it. They did some of that, like how you guys showed me once, to use the action in order to kind of have a related list on the same page layout, even with either the same record or other records. They also showed, one of the cool ones was how you, using a report like as a checklist, where you can actually trigger a flow from a field to like update a status or something like that. It was kind of neat.
Wait, say that one more time. So on a report?
On a report, he had it where, like, his scenario was approving timesheets, and so basically it was just this report of timesheets that need to be approved, and there's a link. One of the columns has a link for every single record, and it just says approved timesheet, and so basically it runs a flow that automatically just approves it without having to go into the record independently, and you can just do it from a list like that.
Interesting. So that one is actually, I'm curious about that, because does it stay on the report when you click on the link? Is it just like a pop-up that comes up, or does it navigate you away? Or you got to do like a control click kind of thing?
So he didn't actually like run through as a demo, it was all like it was like a series of things that he had done. And I haven't had a chance to play with it yesterday because it was just yesterday that I learned about it. But I do have the link to all his stuff that I can include.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Right. And what he said is that while it doesn't like automatically update the report once you click it, the report does have a filter for only ones that need to be approved. So once you update, refresh the report, that particular record would drop off of it.
Wait, is this Michael Kolodner?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I like him. He's a local Mid-Atlantic Dreamin' guy who presents all over the place.
These are all the things that he showed us. But yeah, the take action directly from a report is the one.
Gotcha.
Did he record it by chance?
No, we didn't record the actual, well, actually, I think they might have recorded. I just don't know. It would be on the Milwaukee or Madison community page if they have it. But I mean, he basically ran through what he has on that link is pretty much what he went through just as a PowerPoint directly.
The one in there that I find kind of interesting is it's such a simple use case, but the emojis in a formula field is kind of slick, because the whole thing with images before would always be a nightmare where you have to put like image URLs and things like that. Let's just very quickly Since we don't have any, if anybody has an actual question that wants to raise their hand, feel free to do so. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Let's see this real quick. And I'll just put this just for testing. I want to pick any opportunity that we have here. Let's go to the details page and let's actually create. Let's go to edit object, which will take us to setup here. We'll go to fields and relationship and let's go new and let's do a new formula field. And you're telling me that in theory, I can go to a text-based formula and I can say, I can just put like any emoji in here. So
You can put your, you can use your emoji keyboard and put it in there.
is emoji keyboard a thing?
Yeah. Yep.
If it is, I guess I have to get one. I don't have such a thing.
Apparently everybody does, because I think in there, or he said, I think, I'm trying to remember what it was. Do you have the Mac or the?
No, PC.
I don't know if he has it on his thing. I don't see.
All right, so let's just see. I just added a random emoji.
It's emojis aren't just for texting, they're available on any computer on a Mac. It's Command Control Space. But he doesn't say where it is on the PC.
Okay. Well, I mean, copying them and then pasting them always works too. And there you go. So yeah, so now you can use them directly in your formula fields. Again, the reason why I think that's pretty cool, if I go into our open Q&A page here, if we were to go to our emoji section, you can imagine that some of these could be really good indicators for, status of a record, green, orange, yellow, whatever it is. And again, having to use the old image model would be kind of ugly, but if you go down here, let's see, what would be a good like status indicator for a record? Maybe something like these. Let's see. I mean, even just like the dot colors, I think are pretty slick.
Just with the dot colors, I tend to like stay away from for green and red, just for people with color like blind issues. It's like a green circle and a red circle. So I tend to do like a red stop sign and a green check mark.
Yeah. A trident.
It says for the emoji keyboard on PC, it's the Windows logo key plus a period.
You are kidding me. Hold on. Okay, and I do see we have a hand up, but give me one sec here. I want to see this Windows key and a period. There's no possible way that that's a thing. What? What? Oh, I guess I can't insert that into a formula field. Okay. That would be pretty slick if you could. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. Okay. That's something new I learned today. Excellent.
Happy to help.
All right, let me stop my share. Any questions on that as far as being able to build Salesforce formula fields and then have, instead of just a text that says like good or bad, be able to put emojis in there? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, in his presentation, he said that, as humans, we tend to be very visual. So being able to kind of draw your eye to something to get kind of like that instant sort of information is always helpful.
Yeah. Especially, I think, where that really shines, I think one of his examples that he has there is on the reporting side too, or list views, where you can see like a big column of data and then see like, green things or stop signs or check marks, whatever it is. That's pretty slick. All right. Let's see, Greg, you have a hand up. What do you got?
Well, I worked for a company that used AutoRabbit to deploy metadata to production. And these special characters and formulas blew it up every time we tried to do a deployment. So we had to remove special characters, and AutoRabbit said they'd work on it and try and fix it, but I left since before they resolved that issue.
You're saying their deployment tools would break when you would try to deploy things with special characters, including like emojis and things like that?
That's correct. We had something as simple as it looked like a little telephone, and it's supposed to display next to a phone number, and it would blow up every time we tried to deploy. And then we finally figured out, we looked at the XML, and XML wasn't AutoRabbit wasn't handling the XML correctly or something, but that we had to remove the phone and do a post deployment to put it back in.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a pretty basic thing for a deployment tool. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of crazy.
Well, that was with AutoRabbit. I don't know if that's with anything else, but
Yeah. When was this? Was this recently, or is this back in the day when it was like still kind of a niche thing to deploy?
well, about 2 years ago is when we had the issue. I don't work for that company anymore, but
Yeah.
they had it. We had a lot of fun with AutoRabbit finding bugs in their systems.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see. All right, before I go on, Greg, anything else about that? Or
That's
anything?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other thing from the link that Sandy posted here. This is I want to say this is relatively basic, but if you're new and you don't know, this might be pretty helpful. So let me just share my screen real quick. One of the things you notice here when I'm on an opportunity, this is like the 2/3, 1/3 split of the layout itself. If you didn't know, this can actually be updated though. So if you go here to the gear icon and go to edit page, you have the option when you go into your Lightning App Builder. Don't click on anything, but if you did, let's just say you clicked here and you want to get back to it, just click somewhere on the white space and it'll bring up like the page settings here. And you notice that there's a section here for template that you can click change. And this is all the different kind of layout options that you have for your page. The one that we're on right now, like I said, is I think this is like header, subheader, and left sidebar, maybe, or right sidebar.
Right, sidebar.
Yeah, right sidebar. But we could switch this into 3 equal sections. The one that he mentions in his post here is, I think, 2 equal regions where you got left and right. So a lot of different options here. So depending on the use case, you have a lot of like skinny data that you might want to display on the screen at one time. Maybe that, 3 regions would be a good fit. Or maybe you just have a lot of content that you just want the full width of the page. And then in that case, maybe you just go with 1 region. So a lot of options here. But again, if you didn't know, that's where you would find that. So yeah, let's see. Any questions on that, or otherwise we'll open it back up for questions. All right. Anybody have any other topics or things that they would like to walk through?
So let me make a comment about. I have a sandbox that is a preview sandbox and pops up with a thing saying, got a new automation page and stuff that, collects things, more than just work flows and so forth. So, give it a try. I went over there and started looking, and the 6 flows that I've been working on for a couple of months now weren't there. And I almost had a heart attack until Bill talked me down and we figured out that it just doesn't display everything right now. Apparently there's still some bugs. I went back to the regular flow that was still there. But in the meantime, almost choked.
Yeah. So, and the only reason why when you mentioned that you weren't seeing them there, that suggested to go back to the original, like, flows within setup. I remember there was a similar issue with, was it Flow Trigger Explorer, where you would click on that and you'd be able to see like, what are all my before triggered flows on this object? Sometimes they wouldn't all show there. So I don't know. I would have a hard time making decisions based on what I see there, just because, it doesn't seem to be 100%. So, but again, I think that's like a beta feature, or it's relatively new. So I guess they got some things to work out. So, all right. Any questions there before we move on? And actually, let me just see real quick, Steve. You don't have a link there for that automation page.
Yeah, let me go look for it though.
I think that's hasn't been released yet. It's still in
preview.
Yeah, I was trying to find a release notes page for it. All right, if you happen to find that, if you could throw that in the chat.
Yep.
Let's see. Alessandra, you have a question.
Hi, so I'm still new to this one company, but apparently they've been having this one trouble. Every time they post a chatter message in their email, it says it's undeliverable, and they kind of looked into it, something to do with like IP addresses. and apparently Salesforce updates their like IP address for that or something. So I'm not quite sure if like every time they update it, we have to update our IP address in Gmail, or if there's like a better way. So yeah.
Yeah, so just to say that back to you to make sure I understand. So your company is using Chatter, and you have the functionality turned on, like notifications, where if you get mentioned, or there's the weekly digest or whatever it is, those get emailed out to users, and they're not receiving them. And you're saying that when you look at it in Salesforce, it's basically saying that they're undeliverable.
Yeah, so it's whenever somebody gets at mentioned, I think. I'm still not quite sure exactly the whole scope of it, but
Yeah.
basically they keep getting email messages from Salesforce saying that it was undeliverable.
Okay. So if I mention you, I'm getting the email saying it's undeliverable to you.
I think so. I think that's how I understood
Okay.
it correctly.
Yeah. So, and when in that undeliverable email, does it actually say that it's an IP address related issue, or that's just what the speculation is at this point?
It actually like lists out the IP address that it's coming from and that it's not part of the allow list, I think, on the Gmail backend.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I jump into my speculation part of this, does anybody have experience with this that might want to provide comment here? So, Sandy, I saw you come off mute. Do you have a thought before? Going?
I have thoughts, but but I'm not sure where they're going. Because I know that we use Gmail, like, it's got our company thing, but it is specifically powered through Gmail, and we don't have issues with it. So I'm wondering if it's something within Salesforce, like if they have like that IP address sort of, I don't know, like I'm just trying to figure out what might be different between theirs and ours because we don't have that issue.
Yeah. Well, a few things I was going to mention where I might start. If I just discovered this issue, a few things that you can do. If I just share my screen, let me just make sure. Okay, just want to make sure you didn't drop off the call. There you are. All right. So what I might suggest is starting here. Okay. So from within Salesforce, right? Um, if you go into setup, there is an option over here for deliverability. And they have this email deliverability test that you can run. So you put in an email address, and then it'll send you a series of messages from like all the different Salesforce email servers. And in theory, it should test like your IP addresses and DKIM and all that stuff, just to make sure that you can receive messages from Salesforce. So that's one thing that I might suggest. The second thing that I might suggest is, and again, I can never remember what this is actually called, but if we look for email, there should be, maybe if I look for log, what's that thing called? Oh, here we go. Email log files. There we go. So in here, if you mention somebody and you get an error message, you can then come into this page and actually request an email log from that time period where you mentioned them and you received the message. And it'll actually give you, you'll be able to download a log that'll give you maybe a little bit more information than what's contained in the actual email itself. So there might be more specific error messaging or something like that in here. So that might be the second place that I would suggest looking. And then the third thing, again, when as an employee within a company, it's kind of tough to troubleshoot some of these items if you're not part of the administration team that has controls to like your email server. And in this case, if it's Gmail, I mean, there's still some like Gmail email settings, like corporate settings or company settings that you might not be privy to. So I might suggest reaching out to them just to see if they have any kind of restrictions or things like that. I can't imagine that anybody would put IP restrictions on an email server. Like who's allowed to send you emails? That seemed kind of strange, but yeah. So let me pause there. Any thoughts on that, or anybody have anything else that maybe would help troubleshoot this?
We've had trouble with email relay. where we had IPs that weren't whitelisted, because when you run the test deliverability, it'll send you up to, well, they claim 32 emails, and we only get like 2 sometimes, but we found that one of our IPs was not whitelisted by the team that handles that. I don't know what the name of the team was, but they had to add a missing IP from the email IP ranges that Salesforce uses. So if you run test deliverability, you give them an email address, and then it tries to send an email through every IP that Salesforce uses.
Every / a subset. Yeah, I don't know if it'll be every.
Well, they claim 32. Last time I ran it, they claimed 32, and we only got 2. Well, we got 1, but we found out that which one we were missing and added it to our IP list.
So
But
do you have to do that often? Like look at what Salesforce has? Do you have to always update it?
Well, I don't know how often they update those IPs, but when we were having deliverability problems, we ran that test, and that's how we found out we were missing data, because we didn't have all the IPs whitelisted.
All right, let me take one quick step back, because now that I'm thinking about this, maybe there's something else to consider here. So I don't think anybody would ever whitelist IPs about what addresses you're allowed to receive email from. But what you might do is set up in such a way that specific IP addresses are allowed to send as a user within your domain. So in other words, like think about like a printer that you have in the office, right? If you want that printer to be able to send emails, you scan something and you want it to be able to send an email to somebody else. There might be settings where you have to allow on your email server to say that printer is allowed to, non-technical term, spoof, pretend to be whatever the word is, like an actual user that's sending an email out. So if there were settings in Salesforce like that, where your email server, you need to allow it, you need to give it permission, give Salesforce permission to be able to send emails as a user with a specific address, that might be something that in the old way of doing things, you might whitelist IPs to say this IP address is allowed to send emails as users from within the company. But I think a lot of that stuff has been replaced with other security controls like DKIM and other things. So I wonder if that might be the issue, in that it's just like an old configuration that's IP based versus like the more modern security that would allow something like Salesforce to send on behalf of a user within that email domain.
What was the name of that? Started with a D, so I can just write it down.
Yeah, like DKIM, like DKIM. And let me see here. Yeah, I don't know if I can't find the specific setting that I was thinking of, but I just know Gmail specifically is like really tight on these security settings around like being able to send emails and just as an example, not a direct comparison of what you're experiencing now, but as an example, we use Stripe for our payment platform, and we want emails to be able to be sent from Stripe to our customers with our email domain instead of stripe.com, right? So in order to enable that, there's specific like CNAME records and text records that we have to add on our domain side, like DNS entries, to basically allow Stripe to be able to send emails from our domain. So there might be settings that you have to do the same thing on the Gmail side to allow Salesforce to send as a user on your domain. And unfortunately, I'm just not an expert on this stuff. One of my business partners is like the guy that I go to for these things. So I'm not sure like what the exact things are, but yeah, trying to.
Yeah, Bill, you're on the right path there. Salesforce has recently set up more strict rules around the DKIM settings because Google is enforcing them. And that obviously applies then to a lot of other providers as well. So you have to make sure that you set up exactly what you just said, Bill, that you set up the domain within the Salesforce environment and allow users to send from that, allow the server to send in that from that domain. So that's what you have to do on your provider side, and tell it if a sending service uses our domain, here's the key, they're allowed to do that.
Yeah, Stephen, any chance you know what page that is within Salesforce to actually get those?
Yeah, let me just pull that up.
Okay, actually, okay, I think I might have found this. Now, again, research needs to be done, and maybe in coordination with your email team or whoever that is. But I believe this might be it right here. So within setup, yeah, under email, there's this DKIM keys, and I believe if you create a new key, yeah, so this is where I kind of fall short. But from what I understand is you got to create it here, and then it'll give you like a string that you have to go on your email side and add it there. And then when it tries to send emails, it compares to see if it has the proper key, and then allow it to send, or it'll block it. So I think this might have something to do with it here, this DKIM keys page.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So you have to have the same pair of keys on both sides, obviously, and you will have to work with your email administrator to get the proper setting, and then put it into Salesforce, and then it'll confirm if it, like, there's a confirmation that runs, and if it confirms, it'll be allowed to authenticate and send in that domain name.
Yeah. So
Thanks everybody for that information. That's a lot to research on, but thank you.
yeah,
I put a link in the chat. It's called MX Toolbox. It's like an admin super tool that allows you to check what settings you're currently using. If you have DKIM settings set up, if you have DMARC settings set up, SPF, there's a lot of, sorry, that's a lot of tech talk on that end, but there's a lot of individual pieces you might need to do, or your email admin might need to do. And however, you can check there also which service are you using, which provider, and then typically it takes you can take it step by step and find more information on it from there by just following, hey, what does that actually mean? Our DMARC is not set up, there's no record found. What do we have to do there? And what about the DKIM settings, and so on?
yeah. And Alessandra, I actually just looked in my production org. I was in a scratch org when we were running through some of those tests, but in my production org, that DKIM page, I do in fact have my DKIM key there. And when we look at that, those are the records, the CNAME records and whatnot, that we added on our domain side to allow Salesforce to send as our users. So I definitely think that's where you need to go. And I put the one help article, if you want to share that with the team that's responsible for managing your domain, that should kind of point them in the right direction for what you need. All right. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions on email deliverability or other topics that I have very limited knowledge of? All right. All right. So let's open it back up. Anybody have any other questions or things that they would like to go through for today?
Anybody have any good advice on a good share? I bought this one, which I thought would be good because it's a lazy boy, but 2 years later, the leather is peeling off like you wouldn't believe.
I like Herman Miller. They're
I don't know
expensive.
if I can afford that.
Yeah, I mean it's the trade-off though. Like you're spending what 8+ hours a day in it, so
Yeah.
may as well be comfortable. Physiotherapy.
Great. What's so great about them?
Oh, I don't know. I just got one and I'm pretty happy.
What kind of chair is that?
Like Herman Miller. I'll find the link for the one I got.
I'm gonna say which one specifically you have, because one of the ones that I know I've seen is the one with like the mesh back. I'm not a huge fan of that style.
Oh, I have that.
All leather is not the same.
No, it's not. But you'd still think Lazy Boy is supposed to be good
No,
quality. It used to be.
I set up a home theater in my home, and I went through all that several years ago with all the types of leathers that you could possibly think of. They say you can like put leather out, and it's like if it's not the right kind, you don't even have to sit on the chair; it will eventually deteriorate. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
it's bad. And of course, once it started, it just like exponentially got worse.
So I've tried all those chairs too. I definitely can't do leather. I generally run on the warm side. So the mesh back, I actually have one of those as well. And what I find is I can't sit in these chairs for too long. I always go back to just my old school metal folding chair. For whatever reason, that's like not great on the back, but at the same time, it's just like, I don't know.
So I tend to sit cross-legged, like I'm not what I can't remember what it's called correct now, but when I was a kid it was Indian style. I don't remember what the correct terminology is now.
Crisscross applesauce is the acceptable word
But
for
that just
elementary
sounds
school
so
now.
silly as an adult.
You said it right the first time. You say with your legs across, but I do the same thing. I like stick one of my ankles under my derriere, and it's just a habit. You got to squirm around. But what I will say, just to add to this, give a productive part of this conversation, get one of those stand-up guys. I've got one from Flexi Spot that was like really reasonably priced. It works really, really well. And that's my advice, because your chair is only so comfortable and you can only sit in it for so long.
I mean, the chair itself is comfortable. It's just the material is getting scratchy because of the fact that it's peeling. But the chair itself, I love.
Yeah, but your posture and your everything else is going to suffer too if you sit in it too long.
Yeah,
That's my 2
it's fine.
cents.
I got a stand-up desk, so I can stand up when I want to.
There you go.
Pillows work great.
Say again.
I have a Serta chair, and I find that pillows work great. I thought buying an expensive chair would be great, but after a few years of use, they kind of go flat.
Metal folding chair, that's where it's at. Never goes flat. Never falls apart.
Like you were brainwashed by the
Okay.
military.
So I have a question, since we've kind of scooted away a little bit from the deeper technical stuff. Is it okay now to throw that out there?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay. So just real general. So I've been with Salesforce, but I've been a solution engineer before with Amdocs. So I've done those things, but I still don't consider myself that deeply technical. So a lot of the stuff you guys are diving into are a little bit above my head right at the moment. That said, I am working towards, getting a certification in Salesforce as an admin, really just to have it. And I'm thinking too, like when I joined Salesforce originally in that first week, I had to do a demo on Marketing Cloud, and I actually did it within like 24 hours notice. Of course, there was a script and stuff. My question is, aside from Salesforce proper, the basic certification there, what would be another kind of recommendation of you guys that's, kind of in high use out there? Maybe not so much as a deeply technical kind of person, but as someone who can bring value to, a discovery session with the client, or even your own company. If they, for example, like if they use Marketing Cloud, clearly that would be an ad. Anybody have any thoughts on that? I mean, analytics, Slack, you guys, what's hot? What do you guys think is hot?
So I have some thoughts, but I'll pause if anybody has anything they want to throw out there.
We'll just say that I have purposefully stayed away from the marketing side of things. There's a lot of expertise to be had there, and if you've got it, it's great and you'll be in demand. But it's not something that I want to do, so I have specifically stayed away from it. But yeah, there are lots of areas of expertise that you can focus on, and how deeply you get into them is your choice. The more deeply you get into it, the less well-rounded you'll be, but the more expertise you'll have. So That's the
and that's
trick.
kind of where I'm going. Like Marketing Cloud, for example, I think you can bring a lot to the table in a few certifications or, a reasonable amount of time, more so than if you were to go down the analytics path, for example. I feel like that's a lot more depth and a lot more complexity. Um, anyway, okay, so I'll shut up. Bill, you
Certs aren't experience. So getting a cert and then having experience are different. So I just when you say which cert should I, get as far as being able to talk about it, I don't. I mean, you can go out and study up and pass a cert test that you maybe doesn't necessarily mean you hold it. So I don't know if that's the avenue you want to take, but if you want to say like if your company's doing more marketing and then you want to specialize in that and then get the certs, but kind of where Steve was talking, a specialization can sometimes be good. For a general one, I like after you get your admin to get your app builder, because it covers different automations and just an understanding of how to use them if you're looking for certs. But I mean, if you're talking about the knowledge behind the cert and the using it, it should demonstrate that you have an ability to kind of look and say, okay, in general, for general overall Salesforce, not specific like marketing. These are different tools you can use.
I'm so glad you said it that way, Ryan, too. And sorry, Sandy, just let me clarify too. But even like everyone's saying AI, right? You could get 18,000 certs on AI, but you still don't know anything. So I'm kind of asking for you guys that are really, out there doing this stuff. What are you, where are you getting pinged on? Like, okay, yeah, hey guys, we need to do more on AI, or we need to do more on Marketing Cloud, or what have you, or analytics. Sorry, Sandy, I cut you off.
No, it's fine. For our company, it just depends on where we are, like who our clients are, what their needs are. But yeah, going along with Ryan's thought of, if you have any prior experience of something that makes sense, like if you've worked in healthcare before, maybe look at that healthcare, cloud and stuff. If you worked in retail, then maybe try to specialize a little bit more in the sales cloud and get some of the more specifics. Like if that might help you in that way, because then you already have like this knowledge. And so when you start reading this stuff, it makes a little bit more sense. You're like, oh, I could apply that there. Or if I had this tool back when I did this would have made sense. Because that's actually how I got into Salesforce, because I was working somewhere where they introduced it. And then once I was trying to actually learn it, I kind of kept going, oh, if we had this tool, or maybe if we build it this way, we could actually manage this stuff that we're trying to, track. And so it's like just being able to have something to apply it to helps you also remember.
In terms of absolute desirability or people asking for the cert, I'd say CPQ is number one out there that people are looking for. But if you're not going to be hands-on day-to-day using it, I would say definitely go for the AI certifications, the AI associate and the data cloud consultant, because people do have a lot of questions on that. And that's a place where you would be able to add some value to your organization in all likelihood.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. And I might give a slightly different perspective on this, or another way to kind of think about it too. I think when it comes to the Salesforce functionality, like if I was at a crossroads and I had to pick, which one am I going to try to specialize in, right? Something like Marketing Cloud or Revenue Cloud / CPQ. Those are very niche specific things that companies that use them does a lot of great stuff, but I don't know if there's a lot of companies that would use them compared to something more generalized. And again, I'm just thinking out loud here, but something like Tableau, for example, there's no real industry specific thing in Tableau, right? It's a way to analyze data, and it would apply to organizations. Any organization that wants to analyze data or get business intelligence, Tableau would be relevant there, right? So it's not like restricting you to a very specific industry or a very specific type of industry that might need to do B2C marketing, or they need to do quote to cash type stuff. I mean, it might apply broader compared to those other things. Yeah, so I don't know if that helps, but that's one way to think about it. I also like the idea of somebody mentioned about if you have experience in something, trying to find a tool that kind of resonates with that experience, because now you have the real world plus the technology that you're trying to learn, and it'd be a little bit easier of a lift. When it comes to folks getting certifications, I think one of the suggestions that everyone makes, I think, is a great idea is, pick something that you're passionate about, even if it has no business, connection at all. Maybe you like to collect Pokemon cards, whatever, right? So if there's a technology in Salesforce that you could exercise that technology, learn about it, maybe experience cloud sites or, analytics on, I don't know what you would do in analytics with Pokemon, but you get the idea, right? So like something you're passionate about, build a project that's related to that. So while it's not necessarily real world experience, it's a lot more real world than if you were just reading the, Trailhead modules, right?
Yeah.
Things like that.
Awesome. Thank you guys.
Yeah, and
I-
just final thought there. The other thing, whatever certification or whatever path you go down, I always think it's also good to try to get different perspectives on the same information. So in other words, like you take the Trailhead Trails and you go down that path to learn the information, and then maybe you take the Focus on Force course related to that certification that you're trying to get, where they present the same information but from a slightly different perspective. And then maybe you take, a couple key Udemy courses that are, again, presenting the exact same information, but each one of them does it in a slightly different way. And you might pick up information and, where together it might prepare you better for certifications or, whatever that thing is.
Okay. I really appreciate all you guys' input on that. Just, yeah. So thanks. Yeah. Lot of ways to consider. And I particularly like the idea of, kind of taking what you already know and have experience with, and then find the tool that supports that, because then you do have some real world stuff aside just from what you learned online. So I'm a huge fan of practical applications of things we're doing. So thank you.
The other thing to think about, I think, is, do you want to work for a consultancy, or do you want to work for a specific organization that specializes in something? Because that makes a difference. You have to, if you're doing consultancy work, then it's got to be more broad. And
Yeah.
But then again, all the terminology of a specific area comes in handy very well with it.
However, working for a consultancy, there are certain certs that help you get like other business, and like what the whole points on the Salesforce partner side, which is one of and the reason I went with CPQ is because we actually had a client that had it. We were supposed to be building stuff unrelated to it, but we still ended up touching it because the previous consultant that did build it didn't build it completely. So I ended up having to figure it out on the fly to kind of create what they had done. And then I had some downtime, so I started going through the trailheads, and I started kind of, because I had a little bit of experience playing with it, all of a sudden I was just like, hey, I would have done it this way, or I wonder why they did it this way, and things like that. And also in the hopes that they would hire us again now that, we also had a CPQ license.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely more of a generalist when it comes to that. I mean, if I really do try to look at where am I more focused, I've got 8 years of telecom, and then of the telecom, I can bring that down into things that relate to field service, for example, as well as marketing cloud. Because like when I did work for AT&T Uverse about 10 years ago, it was all about making sure that when the truck rolled up to someone's house, that there was someone there. So that was a combination of the capabilities that are in Salesforce Field Service, or whatever it's called now. I know it changes name every 4 months, as well as Marketing Cloud, because we use email as a big channel as well. So anyway, yeah, so this is all super helpful, and it just kind of making me think in those terms again, more as a kind of a more generalist consultant with maybe some extra time spent in the telecom world.
You can do Experience Cloud, and you can do a whole bunch of learning in that. You can build your own, or take the even the R templates that are there. You can learn like a lot, depending on how much hands-on you want to do. Build your own components if you want to. You can branch out in the development side, or do it all with the Salesforce template, low code, no code. You just go to town. You can build one for 2 years.
Nice.
All right. Any other thoughts on this topic? before we move on? All right. Anybody else have any questions or topics that they would like to go through for today?
If there is nobody else, I'm kind of curious about trying out that whole using triggering flow from a field link.
I think that would be pretty slick. I think that's interesting as well. Now the question is, do you want to drive or do you want me to drive?
You probably have stuff available. You usually have your sandboxes and dev orgs open. I don't.
Let's see.
Yeah, the way you explain that, it sounds like that could be used in project management. Because you said something about a checkbox and then, have it go and run a flow and
No, it wasn't a checkbox. It was literally the link to the flow in the field. So it was like a
Yeah, you create a hyperlink formula, and then that calls an auto launch flow, which does the action that you want.
yeah. And then the way that they set it up is they put that field in a report, so that way you have everything. You don't have to actually open up each individual record to do things.
All right, let's give this a whirl. You guys can see my screen, right? My goal is going to be to create a link that when I click it, will set, let's just do something simple. We'll set the phone number to all nines. Again, just to kind of exercise the path versus a specific use case here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to setup. I'm going to go to our flow. And I think my dog has to go out. She just had surgery this week. She's recovering. But when she has to go out, it's time to take her out. I think she can last 10 minutes, so let's see. All right, let's see. So what do I have to do here? I guess I gotta, if I want to have this work on accounts, I guess I have to have an account variable that I'm passing in, or account ID. Maybe I should have read the information, huh? Let's see.
Details.
And let's see, create a simple flow, blah, blah, blah. Flow receives the ID of the record and then updates a field in the record to today's date. Okay, so our ID equals this. Var ticket exit ID, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah. All right. So yeah, so let's do this. Let's create a variable. We'll call this, let's be specific. So we'll call this account ID. This will be of type text and available for input. And I'm just going to guess here. I'm not going to look at this documentation. Let's just go for it here. So we just did get records. We'll do get account matching our ID.
Maybe you should look at the documentation, Bill.
Wait, am I going the wrong path?
Yeah.
All right, what are we doing here?
Yeah, just update right to the account, right?
Yeah, but we need the ID. We got to pass the ID in, right?
But
Yeah, but you don't need to do a get. You can just pass the ID.
I think that I want the ID be in the hyperlink.
All right, no, I'm tracking here. Yes, but we need to be able to put it into a variable, right? So what you're telling me is I could just go straight to update records. All right, so we'll do specify conditions.
I mean, I didn't look at the docs, but yeah.
Yeah, documentation's overrated. Come on.
Who reads the instruction manual? Come on.
It all accounts where the ID is equal to that account ID, and we're going to set the, what did I say we were going to set? Phone number? Phone. Yeah, so let's do phone is equal to 999-999-9999. Actually, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so let's close that. Say update account phone number. Okay. All right, so now we have an auto launch flow. I'm going to activate this thing. And now what's the next step here? How do we actually create a link to this Chumpy? So create a link, simple flow, start element, account. Okay, create a formula field. Okay. Hyperlink /flow, and then the API name of the flow, the variable. And then, okay, all right, so we can do that. Let's go back to here. Let's go to the account object. All right, and we're going to create a new field. And we're going to make this a formula field. And this will be called update account phone. Be of type text. And then if we look at our functions we have here, one of these guys should be a hyperlink, if I can use my alphabet. There we go. All right, so this is the part that I'm not really sure. How do we format this thing? So it's a relative URL. So it's /flow/ and then I'm assuming this is the API name of our.
He's got it right below on the, here's the formula.
You keep reading stuff. Come on, man. What are we
Sorry.
doing? What are we doing
Sorry.
here? All right, so let's do this. So we'll paste it in there.
Those single quotes you might need to change, Bill. I think they're a different character.
What, when you copy and paste it, it like puts a
Yeah, it happens to me when I copy from like Salesforce help.
Yeah, you can see them. They're kind of angled here.
Yeah.
We want this straight up. Okay. I think I got them all. All right, so let's get our flow. I guess this is the thing that we need here, the API name. So if I throw that guy in here, and then good, somebody has thought.
And when you go the view the flows and when you go to the deeper look at the flows, I can't remember what it's called, but when you're in the list view and you do the drop down and look at it, it'll have the link for you. You can just copy the whole link, but it's basically flow and then the name.
Gotcha. Okay, and then in this case, if I go back here, account with a capital I, so account ID. All right, so hyperlink, it's a relative flow, this thing equals, and then we're going to concatenate that with the ID field. I'm assuming that's, yep, just a straight up ID. And then we're going to say update phone number. Check. All right, so let's save this guy. I'll give it to everybody, put it on the layout in my playful wolf sandbox. Right, and if we refresh, go to details, I now have this link. So right now the phone number is this thing. So in theory, if I click on this, it says it's finished. And then when I come back here,
refresh.
Okay, now that works. Okay, so let me take a step back here. So what we just exercised is the ability that we could put a link on a detail page for whatever object that you're trying to do something for, that when you click it, we'll call an auto launch flow and have it do some processing, maybe decision elements. You can make that flow pretty complex, but the end result is that it's going to do something to update your record. In our case, kind of a dumb use case where we just set a phone number, but this could be, some kind of automation that, save people time. I don't know if I like the user experience though, of clicking that and then having it take me to this page.
Right. But I mean, he was using it on a report as a report. So I don't know if it does do that for the report as well, or does it just?
Well, let's see.
So it'll still open up a new tab, but because it goes to a different window, you'll stay in the report.
But I wonder if you control.
Otherwise, yeah, you're going to do a return URL onto your formula field.
Let's do this real quick. We have about a minute left here. Less than a minute. Okay, so if we have this, so yeah, I'm guessing that if I click this, it opens up the tab, which is kind of ugly. However, well, let me put the phone so we can see it's actually working. Okay, so there it is. And I guess control click wouldn't help either because it's still going to open up another tab. But even if I don't navigate there and I refresh, you can see it updated the phone number. So yeah, kind of slick. But that user experience, like I said, probably not the nicest, but
yeah.
For a single click where you can have it do some pretty complex actions behind the scenes, I mean, maybe you'd be okay with the tab that comes up, so.
Yeah. For what he demoed, I think I'd just do a list view, and that way I can select exactly which ones I wanted to approve the timesheets of, then a button and done instead of. But this has other applications just for the way what he demoed. I would do it different, but
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious because since he didn't actually do a straight out demo, he just kind of showed screenshots like he did on his blog sort of thing. That I'm kind of curious if he has a way to solve for that part.
Yeah, I didn't get that far in the reading, but I'll definitely take a look here. All right. Well, looks like we are just about to, hey, just one final thought on this. I probably would use a button with a screen flow if I really wanted to do that. At least it would be like a little pop-up and then it would hit OK and it would disappear, but keep you in the same place. I don't know if that would work for a button to click from a report though. Anyway, yeah, looks like we're over time. I do want to thank everybody for joining today. Hope everybody has a great weekend, Memorial Day weekend, and I hope that we can catch up next week. So thanks all.